Well, welcome back, everybody. We're here with Bearded and Board. Bearded, good to see you, my friend. Long time.
It's great to see you, George. It has been
Yeah,
a long time.
yeah, I know. How's the weather?
Beautiful,
Yeah,
a little
for
windy, but absolutely gorgeous outside.
yeah, for a change. Yeah.
Hmm.
Hey, listen, I actually got in touch with you, and I was watching a bunch of your videos, which I recommend everybody else do as well. And of course, go online and subscribe. You know how it is. Our YouTubers, we're trying to share information at the same time. The only benefit we get from it is when people subscribe.
Yep.
But I understand the apprehension for those who don't. That's quite all right. As long as they get the information, I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I have always been of the opinion, I normally don't talk about thumpers because I have a belief, and I think I'm right to a degree, that they're fully misunderstood. They People don't understand how they work. They change the entire system. Your temperature point, all that stuff is out the window because you've gone from an open system to a closed system, and you covered that really well. Now, having said all of that, and you also described as well as that none of us know everything. I love learning new stuff. You have opened my eyes to a new potential experience on my end by the one that you did called shooting. You talked about shooting the thumper.
Hmm.
Please explain, because I think everybody needs to hear this, and because this was so beneficial, and for me, I picked up so much of it.
I had never heard the term before, and I think it was, I can't remember which video it was, but one of my commenters said, check out this thread over on the HD forum, and it was about thumpers, and I was like, okay, I've seen some of this stuff on HD before, read a whole bunch of stuff, but then the term shooting the thumper popped out at me. I was like, what is that? So I started reading and reading, and basically shooting the thumper just means you're infusing your run um, with whatever you want um, after your heads are already gone. So you do your run up until your head's cut, and right in between your heads and your hearts, then you either shut down your system and add your infusion to your thumper, or there's a couple of guys that on the forum that were talking about, they had basically invented kind of a drop system, like a canister on their thumper, that they could open a valve and it would just drop this liquid or whatever flavoring they were going to use straight into the thumper without opening the system up or slowing down. And that was the main thing that I kind of wish I had done, doing like a bypass where you can just let me just show you real quick.
Yeah, please. Yeah, yeah.
So
I was
this is my
fascinated.
thumper, and it just, this is the in, this is the out,
All
or
right.
no, that's the in, and
Yeah.
this is the out. And if I want to shoot the thumper, I've got to turn everything off and then open this up, put my solution or my solid matter, whatever I'm going to do in there, and then hook it all up and start it back up again. But if I had done a bypass that, maybe a bridge right in here that just went straight across and cut out the thumper entirely,
Right.
run until my heads are gone, and then open up the thumper.
Oh, I see. So what you're it's like just having one system without having to open it up or stop it.
Yeah,
Although stopping it and opening it up is a technique that works, correct?
yeah, it definitely does.
It probably is just a pain in the butt, but
It is a little bit of a pain in the ass.
yeah.
But, because your thumper doesn't sit on at least this one
Right,
doesn't sit at the same level as a boiler would,
right.
because your column height raises everything up. So you got a bunch of supports underneath the
Right.
butt of this thing. So you got to move those out of the way, unclip it, or just take your fittings loose, take the whole thing off. And, that's what I recommend.
Yeah, well,
Aesthetically.
Yeah, right. When I was watching that, and I'll tell people out there, you got to watch this video. Go on there and subscribe, and find the video where you're doing, where he's actually shooting the thumper, and you were actually making an apple pie, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did an apple brandy that way, and that's the only one where I really was testing that out, because normally, if you're now, here's the reason why you do it.
Yeah.
Why don't you just put it all in at the beginning is probably what a lot of folks are going to ask.
Right.
Well, most of your flavor is lost in the heads. Especially if you're doing a fruit spirit, a real high concentration of your volatile flavors, all your bright fruit flavors are right in the heads.
Right.
And if you're trying to do a blend that doesn't give you a nasty headache, you got to leave most of that out when you go and blend it. So you're not going to have a whole lot of that flavor, as you taught me, in your hearts. It's going to have some, but not very much. So you got to throw your heads out. Well, if you put all of your flavoring compounds into the thumper when you start it, they're all going to get stripped out with the heads anyway.
You're
just wasting them.
Right. You're tossing as they come out. Yeah.
So just wait. Wait until the heads are gone and then add it in.
Yeah, I thought, when you were describing that, I had that aha moment. I was like, wow, and this lends itself so much to things like, we talk a lot of times about like the gin basket. And, I get people to say, well, I'm going to put peaches in my gin basket. Well, the flavor concentration in a peach is really low as opposed to a juniper berry.
Right.
You've got a high concentration. So that's why you put botanicals in a gin basket.
Mm-hmm.
Or they'll say, well, what about dried strawberries? I want my shine to taste like strawberries using a gin basket. I'm like, the first couple seconds of that vapor going through there is going to take out all that flavor, and then you have nothing left.
Yeah, so the solvent character is so strong in the heads that it just rips everything right out. So you got to put it in your
basket. So I'm like, that's the same process that we use in the thought process about it.
That's the thing. It's one of those things that, oh my God, that's so simple. Why didn't I think of that? And that's what I love, is finding those things where somebody's done it and they proved it. And I'm like, why didn't I think of that? That's so brilliant. Dead simple.
Exactly. Gems.
It makes science sense and it makes common sense. And that's why I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a lot of times it's just so easy to overlook stuff like that. And then, because you hear a lot of stuff. And of course, I know you do as well as I do. You hear a lot of stuff that just ain't so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot of damage control that just on the brewing side, on some of my brewing videos, there's a lot of damage control you have to do for people read or they see so many videos, they start conflating all these details together and they get stuff a little backwards or a little upside down. Or they go off of anecdotes that they heard from somebody that just are not true. A perfect example is you don't need yeast if you're using malted corn.
I've heard that.
Yeah. I think Popcorn said that, and old Jim Tom, they said that. That is not true. There's yeast on that malted corn. It's because you malted it outside. That's why there's yeast on it.
Right.
They just they think that yeast is what gives you a headache. So just simple things like that you and I have to do a lot of damage control, and Jesse does, of course.
Oh, absolutely. And it seems like sometimes if you say something often enough, it becomes the truth. And then of course it's sort of like the blinded. Oh, you told me that? Oh, that's got to be true. So I tell somebody else, and the story.
It's amazing, like how many people know what methanol is, and that if you have it, you're going to go blind or die. But when you try to explain to them the actual facts behind it, and that it takes a certain concentration and you're not going to get it in a gallon of fermented wine, they just think you're trying to kill people and you're lying about it and whatever. So,
well, you can't change people's beliefs if they don't open their mind up to new facts and
Yeah.
And show them and show them, and it's interesting. Yeah, I know that, I watched you and I watched Jesse. And here's another point that I need to make this point because it's interesting. Every once in a while, and I'm sure you may get in. I know Jesse does as well. Probably is that. Well, George said this. What do you think? And I was like, come on, guys. This is a case of we all have. Everybody's following the same principle, but we have different techniques and different ways of explaining it. We're all getting to the same ends, but you don't.
Yeah.
You can't.
I get that. I get that every once in a while. George does it this way, Jesse does it this way. What do you think? And honestly, you're both going after different things, like I've said that in some of my videos, when George is distilling, George is going for the hearts because for him, that's where the money is. That's the flavor. That's what he wants.
Yeah.
For Jesse wants flavors that are going to fight you. So he pulls
love the way he does that.
Head.
Yeah, and he breaks them all the way out, all the way down through the tails. And I mean,
I will run it all the way to 0. And then sometimes beyond, because I'm going to use that water. My personal philosophy is if I can find some sweet water in a run, then I would rather use that for a proof to proof down. And also I save all my feints because I run, I believe in doing all feints runs, and also
hand sanitizer. I'll tell you what.
I just refilled this.
Yeah.
Because, not everybody is as paranoid as me. But even though we're coming towards the end where everybody's starting to be able to get a vaccine and everything, my wife and I are of an age group that is, we're not eligible to get it for a little while. And so I'm going to keep, I use this stuff to spray down my groceries, not my vegetables, but anything that's in a package, I spray it down. 65% to 70% ABV.
Yep.
And that's what feints are for. If you have some trash feints that you're never going to want to do anything with, sanitizer or fuel, mix up a little E85 in your garage.
There you go. You can always find a use for it. Hey, I got one other thing that I wanted to bring up, if you don't mind showing us your Thumper design. If you could open the top and show something to.
Oh, yeah.
About where those pipes go, because I also have another story behind that, and it happens way, way too often. Look at that. There you go. Yep. Yeah. See, and here's the story: is that I get calls, emails, and comments that people will buy some of there are some stills on the market that come with a Thumper, and the entry tube doesn't go all the way to the bottom of the pot, and then I just have to tell them, I'm sorry, you don't have a Thumper. That's not a Thumper, and okay, I don't care how they advertise. Yeah, I don't care how they advertise.
If it just comes out, if it only comes out like this far, that's a slobber box. If it comes out to the bottom so that you can force that steam down through your liquid or your solids,
right,
that's a Thumper.
Right.
Yeah. I think a lot of the overseas kits that say they come with a Thumper, that's usually what it is. It's a slobber box, and it's just it's an interchangeable term. A lot of people say slobber box and they mean Thumper, or Thumper and they mean slobber box, or
And they usually come in the models that range somewhere in the $125, $135 range, which is
and they're this big. They're the size of a jam jar.
Yeah, I often say it's sort of like buyer. I just say buyer beware.
Yeah, absolutely.
You have to. Okay.
And one other thing I want to mention is, as far as like some of the misconceptions about Thumpers, they're called doublers a lot of times, and that is, I don't know how many times you run into that, but I run into that all the time. Thumpers don't double your concentration of alcohol. They never do. That's not how they work. Like if you're getting 50% ABV out of your still, you might get 65% when you run it through a Thumper. And I think that's one of those things that it's just kind of like folklore as far as like It's an old name. They called it a doubler because you would put that on when you would run your seconds, when you would run your second run a lot of times. So
right. You can increase the severity, but you don't increase the volume.
yeah, because I think you mentioned at one time, a thumper is basically a plate. It's adding one plate to the system. It's not adding a whole nother distilling column. It's not like running a column and then adding another column onto it. It's putting one little plate. It's basically a really big plate.
Yeah.
Because, depending on how much liquid you put in there, if you put this much liquid or this much liquid, there's a lot of condensing and everything. But yeah. Just getting like 10% more is that, expect about 10%. Right. So everybody out there, if you're building a thumper because you want to get 99% alcohol, you're not going to get it. You might get another 10%.
Yeah, in purity, not volume.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Hey, thanks for helping us clear that up. But I'm sure we're gonna have to cover that again.
Yeah, it's one of those things that's going to persist.
It's the folklore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, look, Bearded, you don't know how much I appreciate the eye-opening experience I had watching that, and I did the great display and great explanation, and you've got me on another track.
There's a couple of other things you can do with a thumper that I don't know if you've explored yet.
No, what's that?
On grain distilling.
Huh.
So let's say you ferment a whiskey on grain, as they do. I can't remember. Do they do that in Scotland or Ireland?
I think they do it in some portions of southern Scotland and in Ireland. Yeah.
So how do you distill that? Do you just strain your fermented washout?
That's rough.
I've done that before, and it's a huge pain in the ass.
Yeah.
But the problem is you're leaving all that alcohol trapped in the grain. It's not that much. I mean, we're hobby distillers, so it's it's a cup. It's a cup of whiskey. It's not gallons and gallons that are going to break our budget. But you've also got a crap ton of flavor in there too. And if you can take some of that sediment and detritus and throw it into your thumper, that's what I did with the Baiju. When I did the rice wine whiskey, I just put the sediment down inside the bucket, and you run it that way. My dog is having a huge drink of water right now.
That's all right.
Sorry for all the noise. Save some for the guppies.
Yeah.
But you could. A lot of times, people will make thumpers if they have a keg size still. They'll usually have another keg laying around.
Right.
You can make your thumper the size of a keg. There's nothing that says you can't.
That's right. And
if you can do that, then you can throw all of your ferment into the thumper and run water through your boiler.
Yeah.
That's that for at least for your stripping run.
Yeah. Yeah.
One other thing that I think you might not have considered is you can cook in a thumper. You can cook your grain. What is the most problematic grain to cook?
Tell me.
Corn.
Flake corn.
Or cracked corn.
Oh, yeah.
You got to get it so damn hot for so damn long.
Right.
Almost no matter what, without fail, it scorches on the bottom.
Right.
But if you cook it with steam in a thumper without a direct heat source, it's going to cook and it's never going to burn. And you can let it go for 9 hours if you want to, as long as you got enough water in your boiler.
Yeah, I got you.
It'll just be paste, and you get all that starch out. So that's one of the experiments that I want to try in the future.
Cool. Hey, one last point that I wanted to bring up that you highlighted very, very astutely in that video was releasing the pressure once you turn off the heat.
Yes.
And it's sort of like one of those, all right, people, please, if you're going to use a thumper, remember you've got a closed system, so you're going to develop a certain amount of pressure. How much pressure really totally depends upon how much heat, what's the depth in your thumper. All that set aside, you're going to develop pressure. And then
Mm-hmm.
once you turn the heat off, temperature and pressure being proportionate, when the temperature drops, the pressure drops, it creates a vacuum, and you could have a case of an implosion or failures somewhere. So release the pressure.
Yeah, honestly, and I'm so glad that your viewer sent that picture to you, and then
Oh,
I got to use it in my video. And thank you so much for letting me
yeah.
use that, because I had a guy argue with me on my Thumper, on the build video for the Thumper,
Uh-huh.
that it's not going to implode. You don't have to. And I said, check out the next video I did at this time code, and you'll see my buddy George showing a picture of an imploded Thumper. So I ask you to reconsider and make sure you have a relief valve on there.
Yep. That
And
was a beautiful
he wrote back,
20-gallon.
he was like, dude, I had no idea. Yeah, I mean, you don't expect it to have that much power.
It can.
Yeah.
Especially when you're starting to drop pressure, because as it gets,
Mm-hmm.
it just happens.
Yeah.
Well,
I've never seen that happen without, like, I think they did a Mythbusters thing where they, or when somebody puts like one of those metal paint cans on a fire and then throws it into a lake and it, collapses.
right. I mean, I think there's still danger, but there's less danger in like the brew house or the Mile High stainless steel kettles, because they
Yeah,
are really, really rigid.
they're
But
very robust.
if you're using something that's made of, it's thin walled, especially the copper stills that are made.
Yeah, or even some of the $120 stills, because the
Exactly.
stainless steel is going to be a lot thinner. That's why it's so cheap.
Right.
And if there's a weak spot in it or something,
Yep. Science will take advantage of that weak spot.
yeah, it will every time.
Bearded, it's been a pleasure, my friend. I appreciate all you do for the community, and thanks for being a good friend. And you're not that far from me. I got to come down and visit you again. We got to do that at that point.
As soon as I get vaccinated.
And hey, Bearded, hey, I appreciate it, man. I appreciate all you do. Hey, if you get to talk to Jesse before I do, tell him I said hey.
I will.
Stay in touch. I mean, we need to do another link up sometime, but we are more than a continent away.
Yeah.
But we need
Next
to
time
work
he
out.
gets to come to the States, we'll have to figure out something fun to do and go and do some more distillery tours.
Yeah.
I think that'd be fun. Go do a little free drinking.
You take care, my friend.
You too, brother.
All right.